Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the JMac podcast. I'm Joe McMahon, and of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by YourGarage.com. Use my program JMac Podcast, get 15% off on their website. And tonight we have a bumper podcast for you. We're getting to the full throttle of the All Ireland Football Championship and, of course, the Total Cup. So, really look forward to chatting to the lads tonight. Tonight, I'm joined by former Meath footballer Joe Sheridan, Gaelic statsman Mr. Matthew Hurley, On Clare podcast and creator Seamus Brady, and Gaelic stats man, entrepreneur, Mr. Kevin Kennedy. So really looking forward to chatting to the lads tonight. Joe, how are you? Has the celebrations calmed down after beating the Kingdom?
Oh, sure. It's expected, so we don't get too hyped up over here. He'll just beat Dublin and Kerry in the same year and just get on with it. But no, it's a great achievement for the boys when you think like the Meath team hasn't beaten Kerry since 2001 in the All Ireland semi-final. So for that bunch of lads to get over that mantle, like even when we were playing, we got beaten the 09 semi-final and we never got on top of them. So, it's a great achievement to get over that sort of barrier, psychological more so than anything. And to do it in the way they done it, it was just, it was phenomenal now, to be fair. They were the better team by a mile, and no matter if Kerry were missing 5 or 6 more lads on top of it, I don't think they would have bet them. It was even sorry if the boys were playing, I don't know because of the mentality of the lads, I don't know if they would have beaten them either because they just went at them, cleaned them out of midfield, and there was they probably could have won by more in the end.
It's hard to believe, especially in such a game like that. Matthew, how are you?
Yeah, all good, John. I had the game on Saturday with Cork and Roscommon, and it was the win that they needed, the players, obviously, and John Cleary was obviously ecstatic at the final whistle against the Rossies as well, and to get to the knockout stage is massive for this group of players. They've had a tough few weeks, losing the beat, obviously, losing heavily to Kerry, and then to beat Roscommon, it's a massive achievement for them. But in general, across the whole weekend, we've had some brilliant games of Gaelic football, and I think Tomas O'Shea said it on the Sunday game that it's rare to say that we have a great product rather than hurling. Like Gaelic football is trumping hurling at this present moment in time, which we probably wouldn't have said at this stage of the season, probably last season. So that's a big thanks, obviously, to the FRC, the Football Review Committee, obviously led by Jim Gavin. Obviously, a tremendous amount of work done there as well. And it's not only introduce some great games of Gaelic football, it's made teams believe as well. You look at, obviously, as Joe mentioned there, Meath beating Kerry. You see in the last few weeks, I know Mayo were out of the championship, but even Mayo beating Tyrone in Group 1. A few other results like that. Dublin beating Meath a few weeks, or Meath beating Dublin a few weeks ago. Like, you have these sorts of results that make underdogs believe in themselves a small bit more. And you have these teams that have thrived under the new rules, and they are getting the fruits of it. And we obviously love to see it. Great attacking football. Some unbelievable scores as well. Some brilliant games of Gaelic football. And hopefully these rules are here to stay.
Yeah, well said, Matthew. Absolutely. Seamus, how's things?
All good, John. All good. Fresh off the back of good bounce back for the Dubs. Obviously had that scary day, I think, against Armagh and Croke Park, because it was again a reminder of not just how good Armagh, but of how why they're all Ireland champions and the level that we have to get to in order to return to that. But I think when it comes to responses, going away to Park Esler, I know it's a neutral venue, but going up there and beating Derry is a very, very impressive result, because Derry fought tooth and nail, and it was pretty much score for score up until that critical third quarter when we scored 4 or 5 points in a row, pushed it out to 2015 gap, and we just built up just enough of a gap that we were able to hold off Derry when they inevitably came back at us at the end. We had a couple of close shaves. The Brendan Rodgers goal chance that flashed across the goal is definitely one that no doubt Derry are thinking about now. But to be in the position where we are in the preliminary quarterfinals, and I'd fancy us against Cork. Sorry, Matthew, I would put us as favourites in that game, but it will be a tough game. And having seen how Cork pushed Kerry all the way, and having seen just the general trend in the championship across this season, that pretty much anybody is capable of beating anybody on a given day, you got to come 10 out of 10 every time, or else you're going to be out of the championship. So, looking forward to this. We've assembled a hell of a squad. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, Seamus. Mr. Kennedy, how are things? Antrim are out of the Total Cup.
They are, but half of Belfast is in County Down, so come on down.
Did you have a nice weekend?
I did. I think the lads touched on the football now. It's being talked about for all the right reasons. I think last year Joe's talked about Meath there and their kickouts. You watch Meath against Down, even in the league, they won I think 70% of Down's own kick because they're big, physical, imposing men. But coaches and managers in years gone by would have been a case of drop off, just delay them, and we'll get men behind the ball. The rules, I mean, I wouldn't have been a fan of that 40-meter arc that you have to kick beyond because I think it maybe does take away a wee bit of creativity, but it's incentivizing teams to push up. As Joe's touched on already, Meath won that game by the domination around about the middle, completely taken carry out by the route. In years gone by, I would say they probably wouldn't have done that. They would have maybe stepped back and tried to beat them by a point, stop them from scoring as much. So obviously already touched on the FRC have done a great job so far. A few tweaks to be made into it, but football is in a good place.
Yeah, make no doubt about it. Let's make no doubt about it. I suppose over the weekend, lads, we had lots of football to watch and view, and it was great. And we'll start into the Taunton Cup action, lads, over the weekend in the quarterfinals. On Saturday, you had Kildare against Offaly. It was Kildare 117, Offaly 19 points in St. Connolly's Park. A good win for Kildare here. 1 point victory against an Offaly team that are definitely on the rise under Mickey Hart. And I suppose, Matthew, Kildare got out of jail.
Did, and obviously if Killy Burke's point or shot for a point went over the bar, we would have been talking about a different story and Offaly into the next round. But arguably, these are probably the two teams out of the last 8 anyway that you would have said probably would have been the favourites to win in the Tailteann Cup, and Kildare got through this game. And it's a game sort of the Kildare 1-1 last year, and that's a testament to the likes of Brian Flanagan, who's come into the management team now, who is the main guy that has got a togetherness in this group. And it's a young group as well. Obviously, James McGrath getting the goal in this game. You've Ryan Sinky obviously shooting the lights out as well, and he's obviously a young player that's really developed into a great imposing player. Obviously, Dark Huron's improved as well. Alex Byrne is scoring scores for fun for Kildare, so they are in a very good place at this present moment in time. Offaly under Mickey Hart and Declan Kelly, I suppose it's been a very good year. Obviously, getting promoted from Division 3, obviously winning the Division 3 title, beating Kildare twice. They'll be happy with that season, but ultimately they fell short when they lost to Laois in the group stages, and that was the result that cost them in the end. If they won that game, they probably would be in the Tailteann Cup semi-final. Like, they would have been in Wicklow's position. They would have played Westmeath in the quarter-final, and anything could happen there, but we looked at what happened in Westmeath there. So Offaly could have been in the semi-final if they played their cards right. Ultimately, they didn't do, and Kildare march on.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great win for Brian Flanagan and Kildare. He will be absolutely delighted with that. And then you had Fermanagh against Sligo. It was Fermanagh 21 points, Sligo 116. A very good win for Fermanagh down at Brewster Park. Kevin, obviously, that spells the end of Tony McEntee in Sligo. And my God, what a job he done. And in fairness, he said after the game, he had such time for the Sligo lads. He loved them. I'm presuming they loved him back. But it's the end of the road for Tony McEntee in Sligo. And that's a good win for Fermanagh.
Yeah, Tony's done a great job in there. 5 years. I mean, he's been in the background in other counties in the past, top counties in the past. So to go into a team like a team like Sligo and take them from Division 4 up into Division 3 and contest. I mean, they thought at one point this year, at the start of this year, they should be pushing for Division 2. That's how much he's brought them on that journey. I'd love to have him in Antrim. I think he's the right fit for there. Antrim's closer to Crossmaglen than what Sligo is, so maybe he can be tempted up in here and get our house in order. But no, I spoke to him at one stage and they played Antrim, and it's just a lovely way with him. For a fella, he's never doesn't always seem to throw a dummy out. He's never spoken at the interviews done. It's never done with the emotional head on. There always seems to be a calmness to him, and I think wherever he ends up next, whether he takes a year out and then goes back in again, wherever he's end up, they'll be lucky to have him. But for Fermanagh just keep on delivering. It was a good game. I was listening to it on the radio, and it was tight. Throughout the game of it, Fermanagh, Sligo had the opportunity in the end to sort of to get it back, and they couldn't do that, unfortunately. But Fermanagh again, or you think they're on their way down. Their team, who I think they only got like 12 senior football teams, Division 1 senior football teams across it. I think that they've less than 20 footballing clubs in the whole county, probably because half it's underwater. But they punch well above their weight for their population to have, and they always have done that. They've good club footballs down in there, and they always, or this team, bob around about that division, low end Division 2, top end Division 3. And to be fair to them, whoever they go on to meet now in the next round, I wouldn't put it. I mean, I think it's Limerick they meet in the next round, but I wouldn't put it past Fermanagh to be pushing Limerick the full way, end up with the Tailteann Cup final, and I could see them taking it home, no matter whether they play Kildare or awfully on it. They're just a team you can never predict on the day.
Yeah, what a journey. That was a success story that would be for Kieran Dunny and Ronan O'Neill. But well done for Fermanagh, and on they go to the Tailteann Cup semi-finals. And then the other action in the Tailteann Cup quarter-finals yesterday, you had Limerick against Wexford. It was Limerick 4-21, Wexford 2-19 in the TUS. Gaelic grounds, a very good win for Limerick. Obviously, home advantage played a huge part here, and Seamus, like, they will be absolutely delighted with that. And obviously, Limerick, we all know it's a hurling stronghold.
Yeah, no, obviously hurling's led the way for Limerick, but their footballers have made a great recovery over the last year under Jimmy Lee, because let's not forget when Billy Lee, his predecessor, they made great strides, got up to Division 2, and then it felt like they just kind of hit more than a glass ceiling, but like a very, very tough ceiling to get through, and they weren't able to make that next step. And then when Billy left, they kind of fell like a stone, back-to-back relegations down to Division 4, and it kind of looked like all of the work had been unraveled. So to bounce back this year, get back into a Tailteann Cup semi-final, get back promoted out of Division 4 with the title as well, and you beat Wexford, who were the front runners throughout that entire Division 4 campaign. Just in general, it's been a superb year for Limerick so far. And I agree with Kevin on, I wouldn't rule out Fermanagh winning the whole thing. I wouldn't rule out Limerick winning the whole thing. I wouldn't rule out Wicklow. I wouldn't rule out Kildare. I think all four of them in that pot, they're all capable of beating each other. You look at this game, obviously Danny Neville, his return to the team has been massive. You look at him getting 2 goals and 2 points. You look at Killian Fahy supplying the other 2 goals, Emmett Richter with 3 points, James Naughton with 9 points. Like, these are the heavy hitters for Limerick that have all stuck around the panel. Ian Corbett's still there doing the business. And then on the Wexford side, you have to give a shout to Sean Nolan with 1-7, Mark Rossiter at 1-3, Niall Hughes with 4 points. It's been a really good year for Wexford as well. You know, they were kind of characterized over the past few seasons of being, you know, an inconsistent team in Division 4. They were just as likely to beat the team who got promoted as they were to lose to the team that would finish last. But since John Hegarty's come in, he has made them a lot more consistent, a lot more predictable in what you're going to get out of them. And they're moving in the right direction, no question about it. And yeah, big shout as well to Ben Brosnan, who somehow still doing the business. I mean, he's one of my favourite players when I was growing up, and he's still going strong today.
Yeah, oh, what a man. What a man Ben Brosnan is. Well done to him, still playing for Wexford. It's some achievement to keep going at that tender age of 37. And then last game of the weekend, you had Wicklow against Westmeath. It was Wicklow 2-18, Westmeath 2-17 in Aughrim. Great win for Wicklow here, Joe, it has to be said. Westmeath, it's probably a bad end to a bad year overall, Joe. Like, that's a game that simply had to be won over the weekend. I said last weekend that they really should be targeting that Tailteann Cup, and Wicklow have knocked them out. Joe?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a massive win for Wicklow and Oisin McConville. You know, I'm sure Westmeath were heavy favourites going into the game after probably an unlucky league coming through, and obviously being bet by sort of the small margin most of the games, and were relegated down to Division 3, but they were there competing against some of the pretty much all the teams in Division 2. So to go down, like, they were 4 points up with like time up. So to lose the game, I think Wicklow got a 2-point with 2 singles from I think the 69th minute. So it's it'll be very disappointing for Westmeath. You know, they would like to kick on and go on and sort of get a boost and maybe bring that momentum into next year. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is. You know, you go down to Aughrim. Aughrim is a tough place to play. We've played there a number of times, and you know, the fucking crowd there, they're roaring and shouting, and it's a tight pitch, and you know, no matter how well you're going, you'll always just be brought into a dogfight. And it's fair play to Wicklow. They really went at it. Oisin Gaynor, what did he get, 2-2 in the end? You know, he's a big man, he's a handful, and you know, they're obviously utilising him as best as they can with the new rules, and they're getting goals. And you know, you see the amount of goals that have been scored lately in all the games, and you know, you've got to drive on and take your opportunities when they can. They seem to really kick on, and you know, Oisin be very happy man going into this week with a with preparation for Tottenham Cup semi-final coming up.
Yeah, that's some result now, and it was a great win for Wicklow over the weekend, make no doubt about it. And then in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship round 3 action, lads, over the weekend, there's only one place to start, and that is Kerry against Meath. It was Kerry 16 points, Meath 122 in Glencoe O'Connor Park. Joe Sheridan, what a win for the Royals. Obviously, to talk during the week, 5 or 6 Kerry lads are going to be out, but still, I think it's still a great win for Meath, and really has to be said, Robbie Brennan, fair play to him after obviously the upheaval in recent weeks and months about management teams and so on and so forth. But he's really just got the Meath lads where he wants them now, and who knows what could happen now for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, it's an incredible momentum shift from where we were coming. Obviously the disappointment of the Leinster final. That was a massive high brought to a low, and it was like, where are we going to end up with in the group stages? And coming into the game, it was nearly like, well, Kerry taking it too lightly. When I was looking at it, I was like, if we win, we go above them. It was a massive incentive for ourselves. So if you couldn't get yourself up to play Kerry, obviously Matthew Costa was missing also. James Conlon was a late withdrawal as well. So they're two big players for the boys that have been playing very well over the last couple of games. So I don't know. I think Matthew was more precautionary than anything, but for the lads to really stand up and go at Kerry, like the first 10 minutes we were under the caution a wee bit. We were struggling to get a kick-off stop out. A couple of balls kicked over the sideline, a couple of turnovers given straight to Kerry. And I was saying before we come on, like Clifford had a couple of balls just went left or right of the post. It could have been a different story. Did a goal opportunity, they missed that. But then we just got on top at midfield completely. I don't know what the percentages were on the Kerry kickouts, but we cleaned them out. Mark O'Shea and O'Connor were playing midfield, and there was a lot of talk about Mark O'Shea at midfield. Jack was after raving about him. He was at sea now, to be honest. Our boys really got a handle of it. Just weren't around it. Kieran Caulfield had an exceptional game. He's someone I hadn't seen too much of before this year, but as the year's gone on, he's just grown into just an exceptional footballer. He glides across the ground. He gets in there. He knows what to do. Makes the simple things look very easy. Donald Keoghan again, like for what he's at, he's just cleaned up and down the pitch. Just incredible stuff. Great leadership. And then we kicked some massive scores at the right time, especially in the first half. It was like, where are we at? And Conor Duke kicked a couple of lovely scores. Rory Kinsella kicked a couple of lovely scores. Owen Frayne, and they were massive just to kick us on. And I think it was 6 in at half time, and then I think Kerry got the first couple of scores, brought back to 4, maybe 3. Carl Hickey got a black card with literally at the hot ball. So it was like, okay, here we go. They're gonna have their purple patch, but held it out, and we were only literally 1 down in the 10 minutes of the black card, which is a massive plus. If it went level, maybe the heads would have dropped. But Carl come back on, drove on. The lads started kicking a few great scores. Then Brian Menton got in for a lovely goal, worked it well. And we had another couple of great goal chances, like Sean Coffey was 4 yards out and hit the side net, and Keane McBride just turned, no one in the goal, slipped. They were 90% chance, like that. Sean Coffey's was probably 99% and just clipped it wide. So it was a complete control game by the whole team. Players come on, had an impact. And it was just a great team effort. They just never give up. They were going the strongest at the end. Really marshaled Clifford really well, because they're obviously swinging around. They were switching in and out. The way the game is, you don't know who you're really marking at times, because you're going up, you're coming back, 3 up, 3 back. So there was anytime he had it, there was 2 or 3 around him. He's lethal anyway, but he just wasn't at it on Saturdays even. So thankfully for us, because he can cause so much damage. So boys done really well, and it just shows, like with the new rules, as the boys are saying, like last year, if this was the case, me would have sat back, try and curtail them, maybe lost by 10, and would have took us at a moral victory. We didn't lose by 20. Whereas the confidence is there, the game is opening up, that the teams who can actually push up, it's exactly how they went against Dublin. Pushed up on the kickouts, got the momentum, didn't let Dublin out of their own half in the first half. Same against Kerry. And that's the way you have to play the new rules. And it's risk reward, it's the same with the 2-pointers. I think we scored the most 2 pointers of anyone in the country.
Yeah.
And we scored another 4 or 5 at the weekend. So it's having kickers, moving the ball and making decisions at the right time. And then you've also obviously got to be able to defend as well. So it's massive, a great shift, and to top that group, it's massive for Robbie and the whole group of lads there, and you got to hand it to him, as you were saying, after everything that went on beginning of the year, and as the year's gone on, it's a massive plus, and look, anything can happen from here.
And Joe, obviously, I have to ask you about that, in terms of like the upheaval there, a couple of months ago, and like what maybe was your thoughts on that, I suppose, change in management team and everything that went on, because realistically, as you rightly saying, you potentially could have down tools after that. The season could have went away fairly quickly, but Meath have actually got better nearly, well, I wouldn't say better, but they've just improved and, remained consistent since Joe McMahon and Marty Corey left.
Yeah, and look, it's still up in the air. No one knows even what happened. It was just literally the boys were gone, and that's it. There's rumors here, there, and everywhere, but there's rumors about Evan. So, the thing you've got to say is how well the players have reacted. The players could have literally said, "No, here we go again." And we've had a lot of that rubbish over the last sort of 10 years, and in and out, sort of imploding ourselves. Nothing to do with any other team apart from ourselves, and all the way through county boards and all this crack. And thankfully the lads just obviously stuck to it. They pulled together. You can see they're all playing for Robbie and enjoying the way things are going, and enjoying working hard, and that's it's pretty simple. Like, if you all play together and play for one sort of goal, then that's that you get the fruits of it in a game like that when you haven't been Kerry in 24 years, and it's a fantastic achievement for the players, and it's well deserved.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, Joe. Absolutely great win for Meath over the weekend. And they'll be absolutely delighted with that. And then the other All-Ireland Senior Football Championship round 3 action over the weekend. You had Armagh against Galway in Kingsmere Breffni Park, Cavan. It was Armagh 27 points, Galway 222. Well, Kevin, what a game of football it was in Cavan on Saturday night, that be said. And it could have went either way. I think it was a game of 2 halves. I think Galway really woke up in the second half, and Shane Walsh put in a game of games. And Porkjoy saying after the game it was well overdue. I suppose it probably was, but what a game. And Johnny Murtagh didn't come up first. He will be kicking himself. And we can't hear you.
I was doing a lot of swearing there, so I had to.
Johnny's this, Johnny's that.
No, like I think that the game itself, in terms of what went on, Armagh didn't have anything to gain from that in terms of their position in the league, and they were going to finish top no matter what. They could have took the foot off the gas a bit, but they obviously didn't, and they pressed on. And it's a credit to Armagh to treat the game with that sort of intent, rather than say, look, we'll take it easy because it gives a longer break off between. Where am I getting? There's someone who phones me, never phones me. I'm phoning me 5 times here, but anyway, yeah, like I think that at halftime I thought, looking at it, my God, the game's over. Galway have not learned, they haven't improved, they haven't done anything on the back of it, and all of a sudden they come out and completely dominate in terms of the scores in the second half. And it was interesting to see that for the first time in a long time, they weren't reliant upon that 2 point. Their game so far this season, I feel, has always been to revert back to the more 2 pointers you get, then the more chance of having winning this game. But they overshot the start of the season when it came to 2 pointers. They were like 50% of their scores are 2 pointers. It was inflating their total scores overall. But on Saturday, they changed that, and they took the easy points. They just kept on keeping the scoreboard ticking over. And whenever you do that, I think it gives you better footholding in the game to determine the outcome, because we're looking at 2 point shots. The accuracy of them is around about 30%, 33%. Whereas if you're in around about the D, you're up around about that 60, 70%, or you should be as an inter-county team. Shane Walsh, he, for the first time in a long time, he seemed to be a lot closer into the goal this time. Sometimes in the past,
oh God, he was,
around about that hour. And
Uh,
geez, nobody can stop him. He's in that close because he's not unorthodox. He's soloing with the left and sticks him over with the right, and he's soloing with the right and sticks over with the left. And they're easy shots to hit because, well, I couldn't put them over, but they're easy shots for CM also hit because he is incredibly talented. And I think the whole Padraig Joyce thing. I like Padraig Joyce. He's a smart man. I think he comes from like a HR background. the whole idea of psychological safety, you should be able to, not that you should be able to do it, whenever you have the right team environment, there's nothing wrong with saying, here, Iota's one because he hasn't been turned it on. Shane also know that's coming from a good place. Well, I hope he would know it's coming from a good place and Dummy doesn't spit it. It's coming from a place of saying, look, we rely on him. He's great potential and he's finally turned up in the scene. And in the past, he's maybe hit 0.5 or 0.6 in a game, but the performances, and that sounds mad to say you've hit 0.5, 0.6. I mean, Joe just said about David Clifford there against me. He finished the game with 0.5, but he didn't show up as best as what he can. It just shows what these type of players have in their locker room. I suppose from the Armagh perspective of it, their scoreboard was ticked over by the 2 pointers. They hit, I think, 5 or 6 2 pointers, which is a lot for Armagh in one game. And Ethan Rafferty finished the game on 0.7, saved one penalty. The other one they got a point out of. An unbelievable player, and it shows you. I don't think enough teams. I'm surprised Kerry haven't done it with Ryan, but I don't think enough teams are exploiting that potential of a keeper coming up. But I think Armagh are, and it just shows you how well coached they are. They've obviously got a team of coaches in there who are investing time and learning the game, making sure to get the right result out of it. And the best thing about that is that whenever you have different game plans, you can approach games differently. And we touched on it before, lads. We touched on this pod. In the past, it was all the same. It was shut the back door, park the bus, and try and win the game by a point or two. But now you have the options of goal, you have the options of points, you have the options of 2 pointers. Galway didn't get it right at the start of the year, despite the results they were getting. I think when I called that, there were 5 games in, 4 wins and a draw, and I said, look, that's alarm bells in my head. Then they went down. A lot of conversations about them in the league. They might have won Connacht, probably a better reflection upon where Connacht football is. But then they have struggled for a performance since the All-Ireland series have started. But I think that game on Saturday evening is potentially the monkey off the back. Down will be no easy place to go. I think Conor Lovery's percentage of winning in Down is something like 15 wins in the last 17 games, something ridiculous like that, So Down will be no easy place to go. But if Galway can come out of Newry this weekend with a win, they're right back in the mix for an All-Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be severe favourites going into that, but that was a serious game over the weekend. And then you had Dublin against Derry in Park Isler. It was Dublin 22 points, Derry 20 points. And an incredible game here, Seamus, it had to be said. Dublin win by 2 points. And we all see the video, and Kevin, you shared it in last night, of Shane McGuigan and Lee Gannon shaking hands and just the respect during games. And it's good to see them wee bits and bobs throughout a game. But Seamus, the Dubs are not gone away, and Joe Sheridan is absolutely buzzing about that.
I'd say everybody's buzzing about that. But
second best team in Leinster,
Third best.
They're not even getting into the final this year. We've it was always going to be a tricky year when you see the departures of the team. I mean, realistically, no team can lose the players that we've lost and maintain the same level. Like, you can't lose generational players like Fenton, like McCarthy, like Paul Mannion, like Jack McCaffrey, and loads others that I'm not even mentioning there, and keep the levels. There was always going to be a little bit of a drop off. But the main thing that you're looking for from a Dublin fan's perspective is you're looking at, okay, well, is the grit and is the hunger and is the determination still there? And the performances that we've had over this season have been a resounding yes to that question. We went away to Kerry in the league, and that was the first indication that we were going to be all right this year. Beat them away in Tralee for the first time since 1982, when we were in a terrible position at halftime. I mean, I think I said this to Dan on the GAO. I said I was watching that game in the pub and I couldn't drink because I drove, but by God, it made me want to break the rules. That first half was horrific, but the second half made me settle and think, okay, there's something here. I didn't expect this from the start of the year to be in the front running for the All-Ireland, but this year is so wide open that I wouldn't rule anybody out, and that's the honest answer. And Derry this year, I was chatting with Matthew a lot on Matthew. Sure, you remember all these discussions we had on my pod and your pod about, we were saying, what is the difference? I'd be interested, John, to get your opinion, all your lads' opinion on this, because you're looking at Derry and you're like, they still have, all the stars that they had when they were shooting the lights out. Obviously, with the exception of Chrissy McCaig, and Oren Lynch wasn't there on the weekend either. He was out. But Conor Glass is still there. Brendan Rodgers is still there. Shane McGuigan's still there. And their performances were good. Like, they were competing with teams, but they weren't able to get over the line. And they finished 2025 with 0 wins. Like, that's something that if you were to say that after they win the league final last year against Dublin, and an incredible game of Gaelic football, just John and Kevin, especially as Ulster men, like, what do you think is lacking from Derry this year compared to previous years?
Oh, I'm going to say something controversial, and I suppose my thoughts on Derry in recent times, lads, I think it's plain as simple as this. And I know, look, it's water under the bridge with Derry at this stage, but I think I said this to you, James, before. I think it's Mr. Gallagher. I think it's Rory Gallagher. I think he had such an influence in that Derry team. And, we've maybe seen players kind of step away and bits and bobs, but I think he had had them moving so well. And I know Paddy Tally's come in, and obviously Kevin knows Paddy Tally very well there, and he's done his best job as he can this year. But I think Derry are still not bad, lads. I still think they're a very, very good team. They have a lot of spread of good players there. I know Chris McCaig's a huge loss from last year, but I still think they're not gone far away. I looked at Anton Toll talking to Mickey Quinn on the off the ball interview yesterday, and the size of them, lads. So I don't think, and someone says to me earlier on, is this the end of this Derry team, lads? I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. Not. You don't become a bad team overnight. I still think they'll be thereabouts potentially for an Ulster title next year, and who knows. But look, as a lot of people have been saying, Rory had the move, and will he ever be Derry manager again? Who knows, Kevin?
No, that ship sailed, and I think part of the issue, and we can look at short-term success. And Gallagher done brilliant with them. Like, he won them back-to-back Ulster championships. They loved them, all that jazz that goes with it. But he done that, and it's well documented. He done it on a very small panel. 16, 17, 18 players at the most. There's boys there who play for a team in Belfast, and 3 of them were on the panel. Never used, very rarely were they used, because he sort of stuck to his 18. Unlike maybe Armagh, who if you lost maybe 2 or 3 players, you have reinforcements to come in there. Derry didn't have that. They remember they still won a Division 1 title last year without Roy Gallagher. They played a brilliant football in that final against Dublin, won by penalties. They for a long time throughout last year, they looked in the league anyway, they looked like they were coming. But this year for me, it's the issue around about the nets, the keeper. They chopped and changed with the keeper quite a lot. I don't think Lynch would have probably survived in the new rules, but at the same time, he was reliable for them for a long time. But they conceded, I think I counted up 26 goals. I mean, they outscored Kerry up in Celtic Park, and Kerry came back and scored 5-15. I think they came away with a win for. They haven't been, all right, in a few cases they have been given bait out the gate, but they just haven't been able to, bit like Westmeath, bit like Armagh actually. The year Armagh went from Division 1 down to Division 2, I think Armagh had went through that league without a win as well, or maybe just 1 win, but they were getting beat by Kerry by 1 point down in Tralee, and the results weren't matching the performances. Now the performances haven't been there by all accounts at the game on Saturday, or the game at the weekend. I think it was they still didn't look like they were ever going to win that game. Dublin looked quite comfortable throughout the game, from what I'm led to believe. But at the same time, the scoreline, Derry did come back into it. But it was the first time in a long time that they haven't conceded any goals.
That game was very tight though, Kevin. It was 13 points each at half time. I mean, it was neck and neck throughout the entire first half. The only period that proved to be crucial was the period in the third quarter where Dublin put the burners on a bit and opened up a 5-point gap, and that proved to be enough that we were just able to hold them off when they came back at us.
You can watch, as you know, Seamus, you can watch a game and the scoreline. I mean, I remember watching Cargan and St. Braids up here, and 2 years ago, when they did in the championship, Cargan were favourites and St. Braids, they were the common team. And it wasn't until maybe 10 minutes to go before Cargan actually went into the lead. But the whole time you're watching the game thinking, Jesus, just hurry up and kick on now. And once they got in front, there was no way back. So the fact that Dublin maybe went in front in that third quarter, and then Derry sort of rallied a wee bit and came towards them at the end again. From what I didn't watch the game, but I do hear Dubs saying, look, it was comfortable enough in the end, but Derry did put in a shift for what they are. Derry will be better than most teams in Division 2. They should do maybe a Monaghan and bounce back up. I had Meath competing up in there. Meath will meet the expectations next year, get 2025, make it last as long as it's possible. But they're beating now thinking like we should be up with the big boys, where we need up in Division 1 if we have all Ireland's contenders. But then you're stuck with teams further on down a wee bit, who like Kildare and Alfie, they'll go back up. Their main aim will be to stay in Division 2 next year. They'll want to solidify themselves, but Derry will be looking to jump straight back up in there. And Paddy Tolly will have them boys in September. As soon as you're at a club championship, he will have them back in some sort of way, not as a collective group, but he'll bring it right. You're now into your strength condition, because he only did get that short 8-9 week window before the league had started.
Yeah, no, lads, Derry are definitely not going away.
The injury list, they just couldn't take it. Cameron McFall only played 70%, fit all year, and Cameron McFall is a fabulous footballer on his day, but he just couldn't get himself. I think Paddy touched on it today in the interview off the ball. He said conditioning. They were so far off for conditioning all year.
Yeah, I think it's very premature to be writing Derry off yet. Now, I think there's a lot of football in them lads to be played, and I think they're not going away just yet. And then last game on Saturday, lads, it was Roscommon against Cork. It was Roscommon 17 points, Cork 19 points in Laois Higher O'Moore Park. Matthew, great win for the Cork lads. And the brilliant thing is they followed it up after a good performance against Kerry, but they will be delighted with that result on Saturday.
Yeah, they were absolutely thrilled, and you could see the reaction of the players afterwards when they got over the line, obviously, with Daniel O'Mahony making that block on German Morta, and then Sean Powter clearing up at the stand. And yeah, there was just jubilation on the pitch. But to be honest, the players deserved it. They've earned it. Like when you look at the last 3 games, the 2 games against Kerry, there was aspects of the play where I'd say Cork fans and Cleary himself would have been actually happy with how we've played. Obviously the Meath game, there was things wrong, but obviously it was treacherous conditions in Navan. It was a terrible day at the office in that kind of standpoint as well. We just didn't take, enough for chances against Meath that day. But this game against Roscommon, we were on it pretty much from about the first 10 minutes, and then after that, we were on it. We really were. We beat a decent enough Roscommon team. Like Roscommon had this sort of problem holding the ball for too long, again, 2 or 3 minutes, a problem that we've been synonymous with over the last few years, coincidentally. But Roscommon did that throughout the entire game, well, up until the last few minutes when they panicked with the 2 pointers, and look, they're out of the championship because simply they just won't change their ways. Davy Burke, I'm not sure, is he going to stay on as Roscommon manager? They play some good stuff, and they have proven, like even for the goal chance, Darrell Craig's goal chance in the second half, they have proven that if they move the ball quick, they could still be a very, very good football team. So it's puzzling as to why they can't play in that way all the time, because they have the footballers like the Craigs, like the Bertas, like the Enda Smiths, like the Donny Smiths, who did start on Saturday as well. They do have the footballers. So it's just puzzling in how they don't do that. But at the same time, you have to credit Cork and their temperament in how they turned it up the heat in the second half. Like shooting accuracy in the second half, Cork had 12 shots in the second half. They converted 9, 75%. Normally in games when they go down the home stretch, like I think against Kerry in the Munster semi-final, we had something like a 20% shot accuracy in extra time. We just didn't do good in front of the post because the players tired and they just didn't have the energy to kick their scores. But in this game, there was no stopping them. Like in fairness, Sean McDonald took some brilliant points in his first year in intercounty football. He's really staked his claim as one of the best farmers in Cork at this present moment in time. You look at Mark Cronin performed well. Like I thought Mark Cronin's calmness in front of the post in the second half in particular was just admirable. I thought he was brilliant in that kind of standpoint. I think Colin McCallan around the middle was dominating in midfield. Ian Maguire has been a soldier for Cork down through the years, absolutely brilliant as well. Sean Walsh, he got his start on Saturday and he proved it. Like in fairness, in the last few games off the bench or a late replacement, he's been probably your best kind of midfielder, a claiming ball around the middle of the park. And he was actually missing for the Meath game in Navan, and we missed him badly because he's a guy that can take the pressure off the Cork players, taking pressure off the defence by claiming high catches. And he was brilliant in the first half in particular, got a bit of a knock and he had to go off in the second half. But he has been a real find this year, along with so many players. And even for the goal chance, Micheál Martin saved brilliantly for Darrell Craig. It was good from Roscommon to build up that play. But Micheál Martin's save just proved what a great shot stopper he is. And we're lucky to have him. in between the posts. And just after that as well, Kieran Lennon was running in and he was going to get a tap in with the fist. But then Sean Brady, out of nowhere, just fisted him away from Kieran Lennon. He's been another great find. I know he got a red card against Kerry, harshly so, but he has been a really, really good player for Cork this season, a very good young talent. And yeah, I have to give Cleary a lot of credit for finding these new players, because Sherlock left the panel, Fionn Hurley, he left the panel, Jack Callan went to hurling, Brian Hayes went to hurling over the last few years. Cleary had to find these players from somewhere, and he has found these players, in particular the Sean McDonalds, the Sean Bradys, the Sean Walshes. These guys have stepped up, and you have to give him a lot of credit for that. And Daniel O'Mahony's block at the end just encapsulated what Cork were all about. They weren't going to lose this game. They weren't going to draw this game. They were there to win. They were there to qualify for the preliminary quarterfinals. And they did that. You could see the reaction of the players afterwards. It was just brilliant to see. And just one thing as well, John, a little guy called Joe Brawley, about his comments over the last few weeks. I will say a few things.
Oh, God.
His comments saying about they're merely a group of players getting together on the pitch for the county was disgraceful. It was hatred for these players. You could see the reaction from the players afterwards. They cared. You could see the reaction from Cleary. He cared. And another thing as well, John Cleary has 2 All-Irelands. Joe Brawley has 1. So Cleary would know more about getting over the line, really, than Joe Brawley ever has. So he is a guy that is steeped in tradition in Cork football, and he has stuck his hat in the ring to manage this team. And you can see the effort that the players put in. It was a kick in the face, that article, really, and it was absolute disgrace, really, from Brawley. And it just probably encapsulates where he is right now. He's trying to get clicks. He's not on RTE. He's trying to get...
You took the words right out of my mouth, Matthew. Like, and you know, we're giving out about the man, but look where Joe Brawley is now. Like, he's like, RTE don't want a bit of him, BBC don't want a bit of him, Sky, who else, GA Plus don't want a bit of him. Like, I don't know, lads. He is where he is, and rightly so, Matthew. He's just trying to be controversial. He's looking for clicks. He's looking for a reaction, and he's probably got a reaction because we've such a big following and blah blah blah. But look, he is where he is, Matthew.
He is, and look. Like, a lot of people are entitled to their opinions, but
have an opinion, but don't say it that much. I think that's too far.
It is, to be fair, and to even talk about the fact that Cork should quit football altogether. Tell the players that. Tell the likes of Sean Poulter kicking the ball into the stand in jubilation. Tell Daniel O'Mahony put his body in front of the line. Tell Sean Brady, who cleared the ball off the line. Tell Sean McDonald, who was kicking scores for fun, 4 out of 5 shots in the entire game. Tell those players that there's no football to be played in Cork. They'll say, go back away. Like, there is football to be played in Cork. There's footballers here in Cork. And a lot of them players showed it on Saturday. And they needed to shut guys like Brawley up. And they did that on Saturday, in all fairness.
Yeah, but Barra comments to be saying, like, and like, you talk about Daniel Gooley, you talk about Graham Canty, you talk about Nicholas Murphy, you talk about Paul Kerrigan, all these great Cork footballers, and obviously Joe, you would have came across a lot of these guys in recent years. Like, it's embarrassing comments, and look, not to go down a rabbit hole, but Joe Brawley, we could be here all night about it. But Joe, I think it's a real kick between the legs. And Matthew, you're probably actually after annoying me, but Joe Brawley, it actually has annoyed me. It's ridiculous comments to make for such a proud footballing county. Joe.
No, he just absolutely annoys the head of me. I'm sick of him. He talks absolute rubbish. He just says it for the sake of saying it. And it's not football. He doesn't talk about football. It's all personal. It's a personal attack on people. He's done it over the years, and he just thinks that he's every God-given right to do it because he's so well educated and all this shite. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of hearing him. He's not relevant anymore, and that's his problem. And it's so petty, to be honest. Like, you know, and he says the outlandish stuff so people will actually talk about him and read about him and make him sort of self feel important. But the like, if you're going to be a pundit the game, do the punditry on the game and the football and the what's happening. If a team aren't playing well, critique their football and what should be done. Don't just like throw them out under the bus and just say don't play football. And that's just not actually doing any good for any the teams he's critiquing, any of that. It's just absolute rubbish. And it's just all for himself, to be honest. And it always has been over the years. I've had a couple of dealings myself, and it's very childish, very petty. And to be honest, the sooner people stop talking about it, the better. Like,
The way he spoke about that Ratty Don on Sean Kavanagh, his behaviour on the field and the games that and that, he's doing the exact same as a pundit now.
Yeah. The ultimate hypocrite, I think, is probably.
Arsehole, I would call him. That'd be quicker.
Yeah. Oh, he's really not making a good name for himself. Well, never has really, lads. Never has. And it's just an unfortunate sort of circumstances for him. And then Sunday's action, lads, in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, round 3, you had Tyrone against Cavan. It was Tyrone 31 points, Cavan 18 points in Brewster Park. 42 years is going to continue on, lads. I don't know when we're going to beat these lads in a game of football, and different class. And I see Michael Home coming on at the end, and he is a whiz kid, and just we're so far behind him. Pace, quality, strength and conditioning, and I think Kerry are going to give Cavan an absolute lesson in Killarney on Saturday. And it was tough watch yesterday, Seamus.
Gee, apologies. I thought you were taking the wheel there for longer.
Oh, if I was to go on,
No, I'll focus on the positive side. Look, the reality is, on top of what was a poor performance from Cavan, it was a tour de force by Tyrone, and there's not much more that could be going right for them. Obviously, hopefully, Michael McKernan's injury isn't anything too serious, and we're going to see him back sooner rather than later. But for Tyrone to go straight into the quarterfinals now gives them the best chance of getting McKernan back somewhat. You look at Darren McCurry, 9 points, Dara Canavan, 5 points, Matty Donnelly, 4 points, Peter Hart, 2 points.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, like McGeary with 2, Rory Brennan with 3, and then Owen McElhone, the under 20 footballer of the year, comes off the bench to chip in with a point as well. Like, all's rosy now, and you've got Connor Myler returning, and like Tyrone, talent-wise, really need to be taken seriously as All-Ireland contenders. If we saw what they could do away to Donegal, and they pushed Armagh all the way in that game too. And look, the reality was last year they were just a mess, but you could tell that they had the players. You know, they'd won the All-Ireland in 2021, and you could tell that like they just need to get the right horses to go with them, and you know they're going to be off to the races then. And the reality is that O'Rourke has come in. Matthew, you were saying this on my pod yesterday, like the atmosphere around the Tyrone camp, like it seems like a happy camp. It seems like they all, you know, are on the same wavelength. They all know what their role is in the team. You know, Tyrone in previous seasons, it's like they've almost struggled because I've always said like they have, it's like, especially in the forwards, it's like they have 3 of the same player all the time. Like they have Mark Bradley, Darren McCurry, you know, small, fast, left footers. But now it's like O'Rourke has settled on what his 15 is, and they know their roles. And then to supplement that with players coming into the panel now for the rest of the season, like Connor Myler, like Owen McElhone, they're a smooth operation, and they're going to take some stopping. And with that rest, you know, whoever they come up against is probably going to go through a very difficult preliminary quarter final. And I think Tyrone will hold the majority of the aces in that quarter final, and you'd be a brave man to write them off taking Sam again.
Yeah, who knows? Well, lads, I'm going to stop the chat about that Cavan game because it's just going to frustrate the fucking shit out of me, to be honest with you. And then the next game, lads, before I lose my shit, Donegal, 19 points, Mayo 115 in Dr. Hyde Park. Mr. Kennedy, very exciting game here on RTE yesterday. Kieran Moore coming up trumps at the end, and more heartbreak for Mayo. The game against ourselves will come back to bite them, and has come back to bite them. And Donegal advance. Mayo, go out. And we stop. There you
knew what I was doing there. Yeah, look, I thought the game was more, for me, irritating watching Mayo. They looked hesitant going forward. I know they scored a lot, some decent scores, but they looked as if they were through. Patton pulled off a double save at one stage. Just before that, they had another shot on goal as well. But they looked as if they were just lacking in confidence going forward. It was a game that certainly got away from them. And I think whenever that, Thompson picks up the ball and he goes from the last 15 seconds, I think the kick out was taken. Mayo must have thought that they were into the draw the next day and they're just going to kick the ball out over the line. That's it, done. But obviously Donegal had different ideas on that too. I wasn't over. I think for a bit of an excitement in the game, it was okay, but I didn't really enjoy the standard of football. I didn't think it was breathtaking. I do think Mayo done really well in hunting packs, and for Donegal to be this really fit and team that work in numbers and get back in numbers and get back up in numbers and they non-stop. Mayo done really well and standing them up a lot of the time, putting a lot of pressure on them 1-on-1 and getting the doubles up in there. They turn the ball over at times as well. But I can understand why Jim McGuinness would be frustrated after the game. I can understand why he's sort of went down the lane of it's us against the world, and I can understand why he said that, particularly if Cronus was available. Obviously, if Markovitz Park would have been available, that would have been the right place to have it. But I think Jim is last year was all about, look, we're just lucky to be here. We're lucky to be here. And he's been a wee bit moany this year, throughout the year. You know, it's like the rules are changing, everything's changing. I think he's building a base to say, if we don't win it this year, it's because this happened or that happened. It wasn't to do with us. But if they do win it, he'll be using that as ammunition in the change room. Like it's Donegal against everybody else. Nobody wants us to win it because I'm back, and they stop the motorway, you know, before it even gets to Donegal and all this sort of jazz. But yeah, Jim McGuinness, he's a shrewd man. You know what to do. But I think Jim knows that if it's not Donegal this year, Donegal aren't going to win Ireland. They're over reliant upon Michael Murphy at the moment. And anything happens to him there, and I didn't think he had a brilliant game. For the majority of the game, but he probably did deserve man of the match because I don't think it was a standout player in it. And some of the stuff he done, like he won a decent ball and sort of done the shadow off and blocked somebody from running through, you know, that accidental sort of fade into somebody, and it works really well. But they're obviously extremely reliant upon him, more so than any team, in my opinion, should be on a 37 or 30, 38-year-old. Is he 37?
36 is he, I think,
36, yeah. Look, I think Jim knows this is his last hurrah. He'll not be back for it next year. But he's put in what, 5 games, he's put in 4 man of the match performances according to RTE. I didn't think he was, but at the same time, like they're the ones who are watching the game and looking at the numbers and great detail and see kind of a lot more off the cameras than what you can see on it. You know, you're only going by what you can see on it. But I didn't think it was a great game. I think Donegal has a significant amount of work to do.
Last 10 minutes, I think we're good. Exciting to finish, but no, generally overall quality was very, very bad now.
I've been saying that for years. Like games were always good for the last 10 minutes. Whenever they're tight.
Yeah, as Finian Hanley said, you're nearly going to second halves of games. It was that bad at that one stage. So, but look, I do think we still have football back, lads. Make no doubt about it. And then we have Monaghan against Down. It was Monaghan 227, Down 126. Joe, a great game here in Armagh. I would have to say it was great to see. It was on terrestrial TV. Everyone could have a chance to watch it, and Monaghan will be delighted with that.
Monaghan will be blessed. they were got away with one. You know, when you look at the game, it was just. It was an incredible game. It was non-stop. The fitness levels from both teams were off the charts, to be honest. I thought Down probably were the better team on the day. You know, Havering, jeez, I haven't seen him play literally. I haven't seen him play a full game ever. But some of the scores he kicked with the skill level and pace, and just so many different angles he was coming from. It was incredible to watch. And you know, they'll be very disappointed. They did a couple of massive calls with about 10 minutes to go. There was the foul, I think, just outside the 45 or inside the 45, where was it Guinness was dragged down? I can't remember who it was. Black card all day long, you know, and they're talking about this, and it would, like, that is one of the most cynical things that can happen. He was going through, drag down, bang. It happened to Colin Hickey 2 seconds into the first half of the second half. Kerry Meath, black card. There was no complaints because everyone knows it was cynical play. Okay, that's one thing that'd be very harshly treated. We're on. Then the time after, I think Guinness again. I think he took the advantage. He kicked the ball from 60 yards out, presuming that the advantage was there. Advantage wasn't given. Ball was kicked away. I think Monaghan went up and got the score, and then the goal. Obviously, the goal was the massive one. That was just a real kick in the teeth. You know, and look, Monaghan had a lot of chances and missed them, but you know, Down really played some incredible football. You know, and it's funny, like they were at it at pace, and then there was time to slow down. But the one time that they slowed it down, I don't know what the stats were. Kev might have them, but it seemed like about 3 or 4 minutes and lost the ball, got a turnover, and from that moment on, Monaghan just took over. You know, so it's amazing. All the good stuff they done up to that, they were like, right, let's just slow it down. I think there was like 7, 8, 10 minutes maybe left when the game was still there, and they were trying to over and back, no penetration, no one trying to break a line at the right time, and it allowed Monaghan to gain confidence. And you know, Monaghan, they never give up, to be honest. They really go at it. Obviously with the players that they have, they probably didn't play as well as they would have liked to have played. They probably, if they played to their full potential, they probably would have seen the game out a wee bit easier. But Down were extremely confident, went at them, and Monaghan looked to be struggling with the running game that Down had, and it's probably the first full game I've seen Down play all year, and it was very impressive, to be honest. And Monaghan would be very lucky with a few boys in the office, all from Monaghan, and they just don't show up. But they were quiet enough now up till about 5 minutes to go in that game, and it was very there was an eerie silence about it. But look, Monaghan will take that just tipping away nice and steadily, and that. Look, you get lucky every now and again. As the year goes on with all the games that have been played, and maybe that's the one they got away with on Sunday afternoon. Because, to be honest, with 10 minutes to go, Down looked like the team that were going to go and win that game.
Yeah. I suppose last thing on it, Joe, what's Monaghan's ceiling? Where can they go after this? Like, where can Monaghan finish up this year, do you reckon?
Like the quarterfinals are going to be so competitive, to be honest. Like I think they can only get who? What I was looking at today.
Matthew, I think you had it up, did you? Who can Monaghan get, Matthew? I think you had it up earlier,
I'm not
did you?
entirely sure. No,
Seamus,
thinking they can't get they can't get Down. They can't get Loud, but I think both of them are underdogs in there. Yeah, I think it's only
you
Down and
probably open
Loud
up.
they can't get.
Okay,
They could get Donegal because Donegal finished in the semi. That was a semi-final game in Ulster. It's only the provincial finals and the group. I think what you're thinking of is Armagh. If all the favourites go through, it's Kerry and Armagh automatically in the quarters.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Jesus, that'll be humdinger. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think whoever Monaghan come up against in the the quarterfinals, presuming that all the favourites win, they're probably going to be underdogs. With the teams that are coming through that preliminary quarterfinals. So it's going to be a tight game. It'll be the same for ourselves as well. But they're playing with a lot of confidence that they're putting up big scores, and I just think that the depth in the squad isn't probably what other teams have, and I think that's probably where they'll struggle against some, the likes of your Donegals or your Galway or your Dublins. So I think a quarterfinal probably will be the end of the road for Monaghan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Monaghan they're sitting as the sort of top of the peg whenever it comes to the 2-pointers. They had around about 5 on average per game. But there was one of the guys on Twitter, I stole his table earlier on, and he maps it out across against the average of your division. And Monaghan are playing, obviously, what he has is, I think it's 2.00. The only other teams who are playing weaker opposition throughout the last few years have been Clare, Louth, and Down. Me to think are hanging around about there as well. But you look at Kerry, you look at Armagh, they're all playing Division 1 teams. I think Paddy Tally even touched on it the other day with Derry. Derry, every team they play has been a Division 1 team. It then gives you that ranking as to where your performance is. And yes, Gabriel Bannigan has been playing some wonderful football. The buzz is back about Monaghan, but getting 2-pointers against mid-table Division 2 teams and then trying to get them against top Division 1 teams who are well used to playing against that sort of system is a different challenge altogether. So they may have to buck up their ideas come the quarterfinal, but they'll have plenty of time to do it.
And now you talk about 2 points there, Kev. That absolute I can't even explain how bad of a mistake it was giving away that 3 up with what I think they had the ball free to go to a point down. I was like, oh my God, how does that even happen?
But with the coaches that's involved at the minute, how that, yeah.
And I'd seen it with obviously the Meath Kerry game, and with lads moving up and down so quick, you're nearly looking around. And to be fair, Billy was out the whole time, but there was still times that our boys nearly lost it because your forward's gone. You naturally have to go with him. Then you're like, no, you've got to let him off.
Yeah,
it's just a natural instinct to go and track, but it's some teams are doing it really well, like that. Just giving a shout, and one lad who's maybe made a run and just run it back, and they're just crisscrossing, and I think Monaghan done it pretty well. But it's I said it at the beginning with Oldcastle, the team I'm coaching this year, like the teams who makes the best of the rules will win most games this year.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
You're saying that already. Even look at Limerick, like their manager, they're one of their coaches, Evan Talley's from the Gaelic coach. He does a lot of workshops around about the rules, and And Limerick are a team who were going nowhere last year, and all of a sudden they've adopted the rules really, really, really well, and they find themselves into a Telstra Cup semi-final. Armagh, no one can see beyond Armagh at the minute, and they have some of the best coaches in the game who are constantly exposing the rules. So yeah, whoever can adopt to the rules the best and make use of them. As I said, that keeper, not enough teams are still exploiting that keeper. Not enough teams are getting into how you do that. But I wouldn't be surprised over the next couple of weeks. Well, more so now. I think that's probably it. But the start of the league, there was a few infringements, and then they sort of died away off, and people were saying we're not getting any tactical infringements here. But that was people saying, "Well, I'm not going. I'll just stand back this time." Now you're playing championship football. You're given a bit more freedom to try and get up and create things. The communication, as you mentioned, even taking club teams, communication is so important to let someone know, I'll sit back, go you on, and you just have to accept that and run with it.
Yeah, I think at club level, it's so important to get a grip of these rules, because there is a lot of them to take on board. And then last game of the weekend, lads, it was Loud against Clare. It was Loud 2-17, Clare 2-14 in Laois Higher O'Moore Park. A valiant effort by Clare in this one, Matthew. A really good performance with Ger Brennan and Loud. They will be delighted to progress.
Unfortunately for Clare, though, John, that's 9 losses in the All-Ireland group stages in the last 3 years. And when you look at the last 3 seasons, they've only beaten Waterford, Limerick, Tipperary, and a 1-point victory over Cork. To be honest, that was a kind of a lucky victory. You kind of question, are Clare good enough for the Sam Maguire? And the unfortunate truth of it is probably not. I think they probably need to go down to the Tailteann Cup. They need to regroup there, because honestly, I think Clare have a genuine chance of winning that competition if they keep their team together. They do with some decent players, but it's probably a competition that they need to go down to now. They've been in Sam Maguire for too long. Yes, they put in a good effort yesterday, but it's probably time that they do go down there. Loud, as for them, they probably wouldn't be happy with the performance, but they'd be happy just to get it over the line. Like, they were over the line by the looks of the scores anyway. Samuel Ryan, Kieran Downey. Motherwell got 1-6, Kieran Downey got 1-5, but then Conor Brannigan got 2 points off the bench, to be fair. But other than that, no Loud player scored 2 points or above. And that is quite a concern going to the game against Donegal next weekend. They haven't really progressed the way they did like to against obviously after the final against Meath. They performed well in that Leinster final, but then you were kind of thinking after round 1 against Monaghan, okay, it's a bit of a hangover. Then after the round 2 game against Down, they're thinking, okay, there's a bit of concern here. And that game, it could have gone away from Loud. So I think Ger would be quite concerned with the performances of Loud at this present moment in time. But at the same time, in all seriousness, so they are Leinster champions. They've already hit the ceiling in the All-Ireland series already this season. They've got their trophy on the board. They've won their first Leinster championship since 1957. So I think genuinely they will be happy with the season that they've had already. So it's kind of one of them with Ger Brennan. You're happy with the season. Do you really want to push on that bit further? It remains to be seen. But that performance yesterday was concerning. If they are to trouble Donegal next weekend, they'll have to up it a tenfold next weekend. Donegal are a totally different challenge to a Clare team. They're on the way down, unfortunately. So Loud will have to buck up their ideas and have to improve. As for Clare, ultimately, I just don't think they're good enough for this level, and that's the unfortunate truth.
Yeah, absolutely. In fairness, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, it's definitely looking like that, lads. I suppose briefly moving on to this weekend's action, lads, in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship preliminary quarterfinal. I suppose we've a few lads on board tonight, so we'll just go kind of individually, just get quick predictions on these. In the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship preliminary quarterfinals on Saturday, you have Dublin against Cork in Croke Park at 6:15, and of course, the game will be live on GA Plus. Joe, who are we thinking?
Nice home game for Dublin. It's great to get them back. Shocking. Look, I'm sure Cork will be coming up with nothing to lose. Obviously, you're seeing that they can put up a performance. Obviously, that the game against Kerry, where they probably should have won that game. So they're not afraid to go at teams and believe they can go and win the games. It's just about trying to get over that line and get that big scalp that they probably can take. It's just whether it's going to come this weekend. Performance last weekend for Dublin, it's good to see them coming back. There's been a lot of doubts over them, obviously, through Leinster, and obviously they just haven't performed. As Shane was saying, you can't lose that amount of players and expect to retain the level of performance that them boys would have brought. So it's a bit of shake and move for sort of Desi and trying to shape his team, and he probably still doesn't know his best 15. That's the unfortunate thing about it. So look, they'll get better as it goes on, and I do expect them to win. Being in Croke Park for them is a massive thing. They're a different animal there. Even when they're playing not to a level that they're used to, that it brings them up another couple of levels as well. So I'd imagine it's probably going to be 5-6 point win for Dublin at the weekend.
Yeah, Matthew, I suppose brief thoughts on that.
Look, just one thing on this, like in 2022, Cork went up to Croke Park and lost to Dublin by 11 points, and the players and the management and John Cleary were actually the last people on the pitch. I remember this day because I think we were one of the last Cork supporters at the ground. Obviously, very few Cork football supporters around in general, but we've seen Cleary got the players in a huddle afterwards, and clearly what he was saying was, that's the level that Dublin are at right now. They're 11 points better than us. We need to get up to that level. We need to improve on our fitness. We need to improve on our in-game ability. We need to improve on a lot of things to get to this level. 3 years later, they're back in the same spot. They're up against Dublin again in Croke Park. And it might be a case of Cleary saying in the dressing room before the game, lads, we're back here again. See how much we've improved there. And as Joe mentioned, we have put it up to Kerry. We put up a brilliant performance against Roscommon. Against Dublin in the league 2 years ago, we arguably should have won that game. Brian Hurley hit the post at the last minute with a brilliant save by David O'Hanlon. We probably should have won that game. We are capable of a big performance, and I think in midfield, particularly, I think Barry O'Malley from the Echo mentioned this as well, down here in Cork, we can get at Dublin's midfield, because when you look at it, Colm O'Callaghan is probably one of our best performing midfielders this present moment in time. Pat O'Coffey-Byrne has been on fire for Dublin, but in the under-20 final in 2019, Colm O'Callaghan bossed Pat O'Coffey-Byrne in that final. So there is potential for Cork to get at Dublin in their midfield. And the saying goes, if you win midfield, you win the battle. If Cork can do that, I think they can ruffle a few feathers with Dublin. You know what? I'm gonna say Cork by about a point or two. I'm gonna say Cork will shock the Dubs in Croke Park.
Oh Lord, Seamus Purdy.
Sorry, I was on mute there.
You're ready to take in the match here.
No, not at all, sir. What he's saying, there's reasons behind it. I mean, if you look at the Meath game against Dublin, there's things the Cork can take from that game. At least we not forget this is the same stage, or more or less it's one round off the same stage of the championship where Dublin were unexpectedly knocked out last year, when we had Fenton, we had McCarthy, we had a much stronger panel on paper. What Meath did really well against Dublin was completely dominated the midfield, especially in that first half. And then when they had their foot on the pedal, they did maximum damage. 2-pointer after 2-pointer. And all of a sudden, Dublin were 10 points behind, 11 points behind, and had a mountain to climb. So if Cork find themselves in that position, if they find themselves, on top of Dublin in that first half, they need to do maximum damage. I think Dublin are favourites, but yeah, obviously on top of that, you can't discount Dublin playing in our favourite neutral venue. That's going to be definitely an advantage, a massive advantage to Dublin. Playing Dublin in Croke Park versus playing them in a rural ground is chalk and cheese. I mean, we've seen that with Kildare a few years ago when they beat us in the league and then got annihilated that same year in the Leinster final. Playing us in Croke Park is a different kettle of fish. But Cork have a habit of coming up and bloodying up Dublin's nose. Not only did they give a decent account of themselves in 2022, but you remember as well, Matthew, 2019, when Dublin were on the verge of going 5 in a row, Paul Kerrigan turned into vintage Paul Kerrigan, and it was a really entertaining game of Gaelic football there. So I expect an entertaining game. I expect Cork to stand up to Dublin, bloody up our nose a bit, but I do expect Dublin to find a way to come through it. I'll say Dublin by about 5.
Yeah. That'll be interesting, and be interested to see will Seamus and Matthew be talking next Monday without a shadow of a doubt. And then we have, we have Kerry against Cavan in Fitzgerald Stadium, Killarney at 3:30. Of course, game will be live on GA Plus. Our first game that's going to be live on GA Plus is going to be Kerry. Kev Kennedy, I think we leave now. We might get the second half.
Uh-huh.
What a complete disaster.
I suppose, it potentially gives Cavan a chance, depend upon what team Kerry line out. If it's the same team that they have the other day, then look, it'll not be an absolute annihilation by 20 points. Will Kerry want to risk, if they are carrying as many legitimate injuries as they think, will they want to risk that, or will they want to give players an extra week's rest? Could Kerry beat Cavan with the team they had out against Meath? I don't think you can be confident of it.
I
don't
think they
think
will.
he-
No, I just think confidence is low. I just think watching them yesterday, I just think the bar is very low at the minute. They just look kind of void, and just if ideas, Garo McCarran, we don't really want his situation, why he hasn't kicked the ball in this All Ireland series. Like, there's kind of more questions than answers. I even think if we were to get down this weekend, I'd give Derry down. I just think it looks like we've kind of down tools, but I don't know.
the ball's more in Kerry's court than it is in Cavan's.
Oh, that goes without saying.
Yeah, I just don't know. I wouldn't risk. I wouldn't risk bringing those players back a week early. All of them anyway. I wouldn't bring them back all of them a week early if it potentially is going to upset you in a quarterfinal. I'd rather have them all flying on even if you bring maybe back Paulie Clifford as one, or Hero has the least any, Paul Ganey, leaving him inside. And if the game's over in the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, taking players off and giving them an extra rest, I just think Kerry have an awful lot to manage this weekend in terms of how they approach the game. But yeah, look here, there's no one under any illusion. I'm sure the bookies have it priced up as 1 to 10. In terms of what Kerry, don't know what it is, but I'm sure their handicap will be in close to double figures, if not in double figures.
Yeah, half 3 on a Saturday as well. Very difficult for the Cavan lads. But look, it's just everything's really up against them there. And I know we went to Mayo and got a result, but Killarney is a really, really difficult place to go to. And then Sunday's action, lads, in the All Ireland Senior Football Championship preliminary quarterfinals. You have Donegal against Louth in Ballybuffet at 4 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on GA Plus. Matthew.
Yeah, it's a difficult one really to kind of predict how this will go, because it depends what sort of Louth team turns up. If Louth give it their all and they get Samuel Roy into the game, and if they get Kieran Downey shooting, if they get Craig Lennon running up the wing, if they can create their goal chances, I think Louth at some stages might have a chance. But the thing is, this Donegal team, I genuinely think against Mayo, that wasn't a vintage Donegal performance at all. I think they have another few gears to go up on. That's not a good thing for Louth, going up to Ballybuffet as well. Obviously, it is a difficult ground to go up to as well. As Kevin mentioned there, Michael Murphy's been absolutely sensational this season, especially with the 2 pointers. Even in the defence, Patrick Moog and Kieran Moore, they have the energy to kind of overwhelm Louth as well. It's going to be a difficult ask for Louth to go up to Ballybuffet and beat them. But the only way Louth can actually trouble Donegal is if they take their goal chances, because you've seen it in the Meath game. Meath were way, way ahead in the first half, and they probably, well, not way ahead in the scoreboard, but way ahead in terms of match play and possession and things like that. They were the much better team in that first half. But what kept Louth in it? Goals. They scored 3 in the first half through Mulroy, and then obviously Craig Lennon coming off the bench, coming up from wing back and scoring an absolute worldly of a finish. Louth of potential, but I think they need to get a lot of goals in this game, particularly in the first half. If they don't, though, I think Donegal could win this game by about 7 or 8, to be honest with you. It could be a nasty kind of a game for Louth if they don't come up to the face of it. We'll have to see, though, but I think Donegal have another few gears to go up on, so I'm going to go for Donegal by 7.
Yeah, hope Jim McGuinness doesn't get any travel sickness heading to Ballybuffet as well, lads. I really hope he's okay after yesterday's game as well. So our best wishes go out to Jim McGuinness after yesterday's game against Mayo. Oh lordy, we've down against Galway in
Just tell him to get a train to the next game, John.
There's no trains to Donegal. That's what
Oh Lord, lads. And then we've down against Galway and Park Esler at 1:45 on GA Plus, and it is on Sunday, so really looking forward to that game. Mr. Seamus Brady.
Apologies, what was the last game? So the signal cut for me there a little bit.
Down August Galway, my man.
Down August Galway. So yeah, I think out of the 4 preliminary quarterfinals, I think this is the only one that I can see a very realistic upset happening in. I really do think like there's obvious underdogs, I think, in all four, but I think if you're to talk about an upset happening, I think Down and Galway, for me, having seen how well Down performed last weekend against Monaghan, now that they're going to be in the driving seat in terms of this game, they're going to have some of the aces there. You've seen the performances. Pat Havern with 12 points the last day. Oran Murdoch, I thought, was a colossus around the midfield and got 2 points himself. Like, they have the capabilities to give Galway serious problems. The thing that would bother me from a Down perspective is Galway are showing signs that they're also kind of getting all the boys back together, like Peter Cook back in the panel. He's a superb footballer. Shane Walsh back starting, looking good. The only thing is Galway they're a little bit kamikaze. I mean, win a game in which they missed 2 penalties. They took the lead and let Armagh equalise.
I had to love Finian at the weekend. What was that he said about Shane Walsh? He's a beautiful nightmare or something, was it? He is like he breaks your heart and then he lifts your heart. Like, put all lads watching him live. He just dummy solos and you nearly, if he done a dummy solo and you're watching him stand, you nearly jump yourself.
Well, I remember the biggest Shane Walsh moment ever was Galway Armagh 2022 when Galway were winning and he went for that crossfield kick. Do you remember that, when they just needed to hold the ball for like 1 more minute and he went?
Oh Christ! He just has these little whatever it is. Yeah,
I was literally thinking like, I'm the most pro attacking football. I hate defensive football. I will never find defensive systems entertaining. I just won't. And yet in that moment, I was screaming at him, like, because obviously I'm living out in Galway with a little bit of a soft spot for. I was screaming at the telly for him to just hold on to the ball. And so, yeah, he is the type of player that would keep you up at night, but he's the type of player that gives you like the highlights upon highlights upon highlights that we've got from him over the last years. And if he hits form alongside players like Tierney, like Rob Finnerty, could be a very tough day at the office for Down. The reality is, it is on paper, it's a team that are going to play in Division 1 against a team that are going to play in Division 3. But the fact that it's a close game shows how close the GA Championship has been, shows the performances that Down have had this season, and they've really earned the respect of everybody. I think Galway will win. I'm going to say by 7, but in a very entertaining game. Like, I'm not going to say like a competitive 7-point win for Galway, if you get what I'm saying, like where they pull away in the last 5 minutes, kick a few 2-pointers and put it to bed.
Yeah. I watched Down and Donegal in that Ulster game, and I just wasn't convinced by Down coming down the home stretch. I think the chances at the end to even get near Donegal, they just didn't do that. So no, I'm just not overly. I think Down have done well, but in big games against big teams, I just don't think they have it just yet. And then the Total Cup semi-finals on Sunday, lads. It's Kildare against Fermanagh in Croke Park at 4 p.m. And of course, game will be live on RTE. Mr. Kev Kennedy.
Yeah, I don't know what the odds are on that win, but I'm sure it is a very, very closely matched. Kildare probably go in as favourites after getting their promotion, but don't write off Fermanagh. Don't write off Fermanagh at all. I would be concerned with Fermanagh on a big, wide open pitch. It is Croke Park, and I think it might suit Kildare a bit more. I think Fermanagh can get caught out a wee bit. They've big man McGurn in the middle of the park from had a brilliant year for him in his first year back at intercounty football. And maybe Croke Park will see the best of him because he's a big engine on him. But I think Fermanagh are just suited to smaller, tighter pitches where they can make it a real dirty ball game of football.
Yeah.
So I'll go for Kildare to win by probably at least 3, I would say.
Darren McGurn. There we go, Kevin. Darren McGurn. We couldn't have a podcast without me and your name pronunciations. Jesus Christ, we've had some brutal ones over the years. But I think if we can bring in Begliuk, I think if me and you can master that one. It'll take its time, lads. It'll take its time. Last game of the weekend, lads. God, it feels like a mountain effort, these ones. You have Limerick against Wicklow in Croke Park at 2 p.m. And of course, game will be live on RTE. Mr. Matthew Hurley.
Just on a side note, I feel very sorry for the Limerick fans. Game in Croke Park on the Saturday, the hurling against Dublin, and then in the football on the Sunday against Wicklow. The Limerick that is a fuck up of all. It is, to be fair. I know a few Limerick people, and it's just feel sorry for Dame in particular because
David Byrne.
David Byrne, exactly, yeah. I work with a Limerick guy as well. It's just I'm just not really a fan of it. I think it's a positive for the hurlers because they'll get used to the Croke Park pitch. That's not a good thing for Cork, and you can move me on down the line. But anyway, like in fairness, the Limerick footballers deserve a lot of support. Like they took some brilliant goals against Wexford at the weekend. They are a serious football team.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them in the flesh a few times. They are a very, very good team. Danny Neville, Killian Fahey, Ian Corbett's still sticking around as well. Like these players are sticking around, and Jimmy Lee is actually Billy Lee's brother, and he's carrying on the mantle as well. Like it seems to be a happy camp in Limerick at this present moment in time. It's a close game though. Wicklow have performed really well in this Tailteann Cup. They beat Laois, they beat Westmeath. It's a very, very close game to call. Both have some match winners. Both have excellent coaches in Jimmy Lee and Oisin McConville. This is a very, very close game to call. And whoever does get to the final will be a momentous achievement for either one of these sides. My Munster bias is probably kicking in here, but I'm going to go for Limerick slightly. I'm going to go for them by 2 points. It's going to be a close game either way, but I feel like the goal scoring ability, maybe the 2-point kicky ability of the likes of James Naughton and Emmett Richter might just be enough for Limerick to get over the line this one.
Yeah, I think so. I think Wicklow, it'll be a good game, lads. I think Wicklow will definitely give them full of it too. I suppose, lads, to wrap up, Seamus Brady, who would be your players to watch this weekend and bets of the weekend? Gamble responsibly. You know it's coming, but you never know what to say.
Yeah, you know it's coming, but you never. And then all of a sudden you say it, and I forget what Gaelic football is, and I forget what sport we are talking about and where I am. But bet of the weekend. If you're talking underdog bet of the week, I think is either Cork to beat Dublin or down to beat Galway. I think that's probably the biggest. Player of the weekend, I really liked how Walsh was looking. I really liked how Peter Cook was looking in the Galway game against Armagh. I think the two of them are ready to shine. I think you can't look past Oisin McGrainer as well. Wicklow 2-2 the last day out. I think he could have a big say if Wicklow are to get to the Tailteann final. Then from a Kildare perspective in their semi-final, Alex Byrne hit 7 points the last day out. I think he's going to be, again, a key player for Kildare in the semi-final. So I think player of the weekend, I'll go with Alex Byrne from Kildare. I think Kildare will probably shade their semi-final. I don't think there's underdogs in the two semi-finals of the Tailteann. I think they're so evenly matched. As Kevin was saying, I think you would probably make Kildare slight favourites against Fermanagh, but then you're going Fermanagh as underdog of the week for sure then, because of how evenly matched they are. So yeah, probably Fermanagh underdog of the week with a strong asterisk beside the title of underdog. And then player of the week, I'll go with Alex Byrne.
Brilliant stuff. Mr. Hurley.
We're going by both competitions. I'll take the All-Ireland's base of the weekend in terms of underdogs. I have to go for Cork to beat Dublin because I've already said it. And player of the week, John, you won't like this.
Oh, don't say. If you say David Clifford, I swear to Jesus.
I won't say David Clifford.
Oh, God.
I'll say Joe O'Connor.
Oh, Christ, midfield. Oh, we don't have a midfield at the minute. Oh, Lord, right.
And that's even more reason like he's going to dominate midfield. Unfortunately, John, sorry. Anyway, the Tailteann Cup, moving on to that, I think player of the weekend, I think Emmett Richter for Limerick. I think he has serious potential. And underdog story of the weekend probably has to be for Fermanagh because Wicklow and Limerick are so evenly matched. So probably go for that.
Kevin, before I ask you, we've a comment in from a listener here. Whatever way you have your hair today, it makes you look 10 years younger. So there you go.
Who's that to me? It's bald, not even
Kev Kenny, last word with you, sir.
Thank you very much. You have the worst of the loss, as they say. Bet of the weekend, I would go with a draw. I mean, if it was having a bet, I would do a draw on both Tailteann Cup games. And double them up as a pound each way or pound on both of them, whatever it might be. But I do think that the greatest potential there is for Wicklow and Limerick to end in a draw. I think that is probably very, very close on it. I will go with who I couldn't get his name right, but McGurn in the middle of the park still couldn't get his name right. For Mana, I think he's had a great season, and somewhere like Croke Park will suit him. I'll go with Donny McGill to have a great game against Galway. Donny McGill is a footballer who I think he's brilliant. He's playing half forward. For Down, he gets some brilliant scores, some 2-pointers. If there is going to be an upset, I would say that it most likely will be Cork as well. I think Cork could push Dublin. Will Cork win? I'm not sure, but I think they'll definitely cover the handicap. But if the handicap is, I think they'll get within a point or two of Dublin and potentially get a win there.
Very, very last question. Matthew, is this kind of a defining moment for this Cork team in terms of can we finally beat a big team, and that big team being Dublin in Croke Park?
Probably will be, and I think it's a kind of full circle moment as well, considering what Cleary did at the end of the 2022 game. Got them in a huddle. I think genuinely this is a big game for Cork, and I spoke to John Cleary with the media afterwards, after the Roscommon game, and what he was saying to us, to myself, to Barry O'Mahony, and to Owen Cormacan as well, was they don't want to be there for the crack next week. They don't want to be in a preliminary quarterfinal for the crack. They want to push on. They want to be further in the championship. And John Cleary has said these comments as well, like saying that Cork want to get promoted from Division 2. He said to me at the start of the year that they have aspirations to go all the way and win the All-Ireland. Brian Hurley saying the exact same thing. I know a lot of people would say that's, it's premature talk and stuff like that, but the whole panel is saying it. Like, a lot of players in this Cork team genuinely believe they can produce a good performance and they can get a win. You look at me beating Dublin and Kerry this year, and you see, I know Cork lost to beat the championship, but they beat them in the league earlier on the year. Like, there's every potential that this Cork team could push on. So, genuinely, I think this is a defining moment this weekend. But then again, if we go out of the championship, we're still going out of the championship with Croke Park. So I will take the positives, So
yeah. No, absolutely, Matthew. Well, lads, thanks a million for joining me tonight. That was an absolute pleasure. Obviously, Joe Sheridan had to just nip off, but it was an absolute pleasure to be joined by Joe. It was an absolute pleasure to be joined by Seamus Brady, Matthew Hurley, and Kevin Kennedy. Seamus Brady from the Enclave podcast, Matthew Hurley from Gaelic Statsman, and of course, Kevin Kennedy from the GA Sports Tracker app. Lads, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast is kindly brought to you by yourgoretch.com. Use my promo code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. Lads, have a great week. Enjoy the football at the weekend.
Good night, God bless.
Thank you very much, John.